here we go. Hey, it is Marshfield Old School Times here with you today, and this is Saturday, February the 15th, the day after Valentine's Day, and pretty decent afternoon in Marshfield today, but the weather's getting ready to change. So we're glad to have a couple of guys and actually a third guy here with them today to come in and talk a little bit about old times in Marshfield. Gene Farr and James, and this is Jackson. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You bet. We are glad to have you. Gene, been around a long time, and we've had several folks that have been around like you have, and it just makes for an interesting time to visit about how Marshfield was back in the day when you all were growing up, and to hear those kinds of stories. Of course, what we're trying to do here is document history. We want to be able to have stories to pass on to the future generations, and we've often talked about how many stories that we heard growing up with our parents and grandparents, and how if we would have wrote it down or videoed it or something, we would have those today to share. And of course, we missed a lot of that. But we're gonna change that going forward. So that's why we've invited you to come today. So we're gonna get started real quick. So James or Gene, you've been here most all your life, right?
That's right. I lived here almost all my life. I was in the service for a little while and gone most of the time. And after I went to work for the Missouri Highway Department, I had to move to Stratford to get on the job. And then they built a new shop out on the west side of Springfield, and I had to move to Republic then to work at that shop.
Yeah.
And
You still really was always a Marshfieldian, though.
come back to Marshfield as the foreman
Uh-huh.
in 1964.
74.
74?
74.
Yeah, 74.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the kind of stories we want to hear. Before we get into too much of that, we want to back up, though. We want to, as Gary Price, a former guest we had on here, said, we want to know when you actually discovered America. So
I actually discovered America in 1934.
there you go, 1934. That makes you about 90 years old now.
It's awful
Man,
close. Soon be 91.
That's amazing. You've kind of you won the game, haven't you?
Yeah.
You sure have.
He says I'm going to live to be 100.
Well, I'd say you got a good shot at it. We've had several on here that are older than you that still are going strong. So that's really good.
Yeah.
So 1934, tell us a little bit about your childhood. Where were you born and your folks and, the community you were raised in?
Well, I was born, I guess we were staying with my grandma Montgomery. And we lived out on the old Seymour Road. And
Now that's where Tom and Robin Roast live, right? Is that where Tom and Robin
they
live?
live on they lived where we were raised. After that, the tornado went through
Okay,
and blew our house away.
I see.
He was actually born across from Judge Canusto's place.
Oh, right up
Yeah.
that close. Then. Okay, not far from me. Yeah.
My dad laid down on me in the floor. My mom laid down on my sister. And my grandma, she wouldn't lay down.
Really?
So she stood up and the tornado blew her out in the yard. And it was a log house. It stacked all those logs around her. She was covered up with them, but not a log was on her.
Is that right?
That's right. The Lord was sure watching over.
Wow, I'd never heard that story. Was that the Rosie Phelan farm across from Canoes?
Yeah.
Wow. Was the house there close to the road somewhere?
No,
No.
it's
Back-
way back
back
by the
down.
creek.
Okay. Well, there's a new story I've never heard before. That's amazing.
Yeah. We just had a little house down there and they had a barn.
Yeah.
And that was all the buildings that was there.
I'll be darned. Now, your grandfather Montgomery, what was his first name?
William.
William, and her name was Mrs.
Martha.
Martha. Okay. All right.
And they had a they got their water, drinking water and everything from a spring. And it had a great big rock there, and the water came out from underneath that rock.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of them did
And
that.
it was good drinking water.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah. So your mother then was a Montgomery, born to those. What was your
Right.
mom's name then? What was your mother's name?
Ethel,
Ethel. Okay, Ethel Montgomery, and married your dad, and your dad's name was
Elston.
Elston Farr. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, of course, we've had Tom Farr on here 3 times actually. Had Rosie Phelan on, very familiar with that Montgomery and Farr connection because I think Tom's mother.
We're little related to
Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah.
Tom's mother was in Montgomery,
Uh-huh.
and so that somehow made us connected.
Right. Right. And then Elston Farr and Tom Farr's dad were connected too, right?
Yeah.
So you're kind of on both sides, like
Yeah.
like we've got some of that in our family. Well, so you lived with them, and then did you move on down?
Yeah,
Where'd you go
but
from there?
later on, we moved on over where Tom Rose lives
Yeah,
now.
right on down the road.
We had, my dad, I think he went, we started out with about 40 acres, I think.
Yeah,
And, we milked cows and put up hay and all that good stuff.
yeah,
And we, in the winter time, my dad and I would cut wood off here a place out. And we'd set out about 2 acres of tomatoes in the spring.
Yeah.
And we had a canning factory.
yeah. Like most families did, didn't they?
Yeah, you had to do anything to make a living.
Now, this would have been the 30s. The Depression would have been going on, and
And they would have some women, the day we canned, he would have about 3 or 4 maybe women come in and peel tomatoes.
Yeah.
And I remember they had a empty tomato can sitting in their corner where they was peeling it, and they'd drop a nail in there for every bucket that they peeled.
that's how they counted them. Yeah,
Yeah.
they got paid by the bucket, I guess,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, my folks, or my dad, my granddad and my dad was a boy, and they did the same thing over here on the other side of town, out on 38 there, where Lynn Fraker over in that direction.
Yeah.
They had a canning factory, and same scenario. Had some neighbor ladies that come and help peel on canning day and all that. So that's interesting to hear how people made their living during the
Right.
Depression. So you have any brothers and sisters?
I had 2 sisters.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Lorraine, and she married Bill Shockley.
Okay.
He was from Conroe.
Uh-huh. Was that Maxine's?
Brother.
Maxine
brother.
Replo's brother. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
And my other sister was Joanne,
Mm-hmm.
and she married Kenneth George.
Mhm.
He was from Coffeyville, Kansas.
Okay. And he just passed away recently.
Mhm.
Kenneth's good
Just
man.
about 2 weeks
Yeah.
ago.
Yeah. I knew Kenneth pretty well. He was a good fella.
Yeah. Now,
Okay.
he was kin to Clay McVeigh and
Stanley and all them.
Sandy and
Yeah.
all of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
That's how they got together.
Got
He
together.
was down here visiting them.
Gotcha. Well, that's how these old connections were back in those
That's right.
days. And it is amazing that whole, we'll call it the Teagues community, or the old Seymour Road. I mean, there's just so many old family connections. Not that they were intermarried wrong, but I mean they're family members, new family members, and they would connect people, and that, of course, the roasts, all came from out in that area, and a lot of that in those days because they couldn't
people-
travel very well.
People visited more back then.
Yes, yes,
With their friends.
Yes,
And stuff, more than what they do now.
right. So you had the 2 sisters and you, and then you guys moved down there. Now the old barn that we just redid for Robin, was that the barn that you milked in and all that?
Yeah.
Man, that thing, it looked like it needed to come down, and we got in there and looked at that barn, and it structurally was still really good. And they made the decision to save it, and it is a beautiful old barn.
It
Have you
is.
taken him out to see it?
Yes, I have. We
Yeah.
spent a lot of time when I was a kid cleaning that barn.
Yeah, I bet you did. Yeah.
And there was a roast that lived there before Grandpa did,
Uh,
and they had a son that fell off that barn. And
Oh.
and it killed him.
that was my
Caleb Brooks.
that was my grandpa.
Oh,
That
yeah.
was my uncle. Yeah, I'll tell you that story real quick. So that would have been about 30. It was before you guys, before
Yeah.
you were born. 31, because Donald was a baby,
Uh-huh.
and maybe been 32. And my mother, my grandma Josie, was pregnant with my mother, and the little boy's name was James Lowell, and he was would have been the oldest of their siblings, and he was playing on the barn they were building a barn, and it was a log barn.
Yeah.
And my grandpa and whoever was helping him went back to the woods to get another load of logs. Well, they didn't really have the logs very secure yet. They were, in the process of building it. I think James was 3 years old, and he had, as little boys did back then, just like if you go to the Amish community, they're out there running around barefoot at 2 years old.
Yeah.
And he had, migrated over to the barn, and he actually had climbed up on those logs, and they fell over on him. And my grandmother had to, of course, she discovered it or realized it, and ran out there, and she had Donald, who was 1 year old. She was carrying him, pregnant with my mother, and she ran however far it would have been to the neighbors back then. It was a ways,
Yeah.
and to get help, because Grandpa was down in the woods. She didn't even know where he was.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's one of those tragic family stories that most families have somewhere along the way.
Now,
And,
when me and my cousin were little, we had BB guns.
Yeah.
We'd go up in the barn loft, and there was 2 windows up there, one on each side.
Hmm.
And we would get up there and shoot birds and grandma's chickens.
Yeah.
Grandma knew that.
You didn't have fried chicken that evening for dinner either. You probably threw them down in the ditch, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
There's one more thing about the canning factory.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of the peeling from the tomatoes, we shoved them out the trough. We had a trough that they fell in. And the cows just loved them.
loved them. Yeah. Well, there you go. You had to do everything you could to make everything work.
Yeah.
What was it like? I've talked to some of the others about that. Kind of what was it like, even after Pearl Harbor was bombed, and you'd have been what, 7 years old, I guess, if you do the math, 34 to 41. What was that like in those days? That had to be kind of a scary time, didn't it? Or do you recall much about it?
Well, I remember we didn't have no TV back then, but we had a battery radio.
Uh-huh.
And all we got to listen to mainly was the news and the weather and Judy and Jane.
Judy and Jane. Well, what about the Grand Ole Opry on Saturday night? Did you
Yes,
get to watch?
we had to
Yeah,
watch- yes, we
yeah. I
had
heard
to
Mom and
watch
Dad
it.
talk about that.
And when I would go by, after I got 16, I'd go buy me a car. And if it wouldn't get Nashville, I wouldn't buy it.
Well, we can relate to that growing up
Yeah.
in the
Oh,
70s too, can't we, James?
Yeah.
So I bet it was kind of tough times though, people
Mhm.
not knowing what was going to happen. And, Tom Farr was on here, and he was part of a group of boys. If you heard him, I don't know if you saw that show, but here in Marshfield, that they were taught to report to a street person, a street lady, a certain lady was assigned in case there was an air raid. They didn't know if the whole United States was going to get bombed, or he just said it was really uncertain. And
It'd
of
be
course,
scary.
it would be scary not
And
knowing.
they kept talking about I've heard talk about a blackout.
Yeah, power and stuff.
Mhm.
I bet that was tough times.
It
And-
was, yeah.
And you just come out of the Depression when that all happened anyway. So,
Mhm.
well, so then you started school out there. You tell us a little bit about your country school life.
Well, I started Tiggs. We lived up on Tiggs, and I started to school my first grade there. And we had to walk to school, of course, and back.
Uphill both ways.
And that was
uphill both ways.
now, as the crow flies, it may not been too awful far, but as driving, that was a pretty good drive back down to Teague's.
Yeah, it was. It's a pretty good drive.
Yeah.
It's probably a mile and a half.
Yeah,
or two.
yeah.
Yeah.
Is that Teague's foundation still there? I wonder if it
I
is.
think it is.
I kind of think it is too.
The school isn't there now.
No, I know. I don't think it is. Yeah.
Foundation made
There
it.
was a trailer house out there, wasn't there?
I think they're on that place. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you started, how many years did you go to Teague's?
I
then?
think I went about 3 years.
3 years.
Tiggs, and
Uh-huh.
then we moved on down on Seymour Road where Tom and lives. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And went to Rocky Point.
Rocky
School.
Point. Mm-hmm.
And of course, we had to walk over there too, and it was about 2 miles.
That's over by Ebenezer, right?
Yeah, well, we didn't walk all the way to Ebenezer. It was
On the
been south of
Floyd, on the
Ebenezer.
Floyd farm there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Over by, yeah, close to it. Yeah.
Lars McVeigh lived there.
Oh, he did. Yeah.
Yeah, he lived right there in that house next to
Yeah.
the school.
Yeah. I didn't know that.
And the teacher lived with them some.
Uh-huh.
And anyway, we would walk over to Uncle Johnny's. They just lived across the road and down.
Now that was
Quarter.
Montgomery, Johnny Montgomery. Yeah.
Johnny
Yeah.
Montgomery. And then we would get with their kids and we'd walk through their field, make a shortcut
Yeah.
and hit that road. I don't know what it's called now.
Copperhead, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Copperhead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Kind of
Cut across over there.
Mhm. And
Herschel,
up on the
yeah,
hill,
yeah.
down another one around the
Yeah.
corner or two.
Yeah. 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 Pretty good piece to walk every day.
Yeah, it
But,
was. And then that wasn't the worst of it. When we got home, we had to walk and get the cows up.
Well, sure. You had chores to do,
And,
didn't you?
yeah, we didn't go in the house and sit down and punch on the telephone, you know.
Right. Yeah, exactly.
We,
Rocky Point School was across the road back then too.
Oh, okay.
It was
They're on
where Garland
Garland Calloway's place.
dairy barn was there.
Oh, it was right there close to the road.
But
Okay.
I guess when they built the dairy barn, they moved
Moved it over.
the school across the road.
Gotcha. Well, that place was my great grandparents' place,
Oh.
James Goodnight. Do you remember the Goodnights?
yeah, oh, yeah.
Josie Roast was a Goodnight,
Mhm.
and that's where my mother would go in the weekends or in the summers and spend a lot of time playing out there and stuff at the Goodnight farm. That's Jeff Galbraith has that now,
Yeah.
back down that lane.
They just crossed the creek.
Yeah, yeah, across the creek.
Yeah.
She mother had really good stories of going out there and spending time with Grandma and Grandpa Goodnight. Her and June would said he'd sleep in the attic. It was awful cold in the wintertime. But in the summer, they'd always get to stop and get ice cream on the way out there. It was fun.
I guess the reason I didn't go but 1 year to high school.
Mhm.
I don't know, I just felt like the kids raised in town
Mhm.
felt a little better than me.
Yeah, well,
And so I didn't care.
yeah. Times were different back then, for
I
sure.
got a job here in town,
Yeah,
worked 9 hours a day.
Yeah.
and 6 days a week, got $25 for it.
yeah. Where'd you work?
The Marshfield Tar Shop. It's
Okay.
not there no more.
Yeah,
It was on the east middle street that goes out of the square and
Uh-huh.
into the first block.
down there,
About where old Tasco.
Otasco, right in there. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Marshfield Tire Shop. Who owned that? Do you remember?
Yes, I do.
He's got good memory.
Yeah.
You do. You got good
Elmer,
memory.
Elmer something, wasn't it?
Elmer Blair
Elmer Blair.
and his, I think he was his stepson, Bill Lackner,
Okay.
worked there. Well, Elmer owned it, I'm pretty sure, and Bill just kind of come along with him.
Sure. I wonder if he was connected to the Blairs that the street's named after, Blair Street.
I don't know.
Because that's a name that's
I bet he was.
not common with Marshfield
Yeah.
anymore. You know.
I don't know. They lived in Springfield
I see. Okay.
and drove back and forth.
Yeah.
So they would go home about 3 o'clock in the afternoon
Yeah,
and left me in charge there.
yeah. So that would have been your freshman year that you went to Marshfield School, and then you started. So
Mhm.
probably you turned 16, maybe, or
Yeah.
about that. Okay. So I'm
Yeah.
sure you started driving and all that.
Yeah. And we sold gasoline there.
Yeah.
And recapped tires and vulcanized them.
Yeah,
Fixed many flat tires.
yeah. I bet. I bet.
Tires wasn't near as good back then as they are now.
Oh no, they wouldn't last very long. So did you? I know you. How old were you when you went into the service then?
Well, I was 20.
20.
Went into the service.
Yeah. You get drafted?
No, volunteered
Did you?
for it.
Volunteer? Well, good for you. And what about Mrs. Farr? When did she come along? When did Dorothy
Okay.
come along?
Well, we have all went to church together all along, and we knew each other for a long time.
Yeah.
And her mom wouldn't let her date nobody till she got 18. But we would slip around a little bit, and she didn't know nothing about her.
Well,
So we had gotten engaged. And,
yeah.
we decided that we'd just get married before I went to the service.
Okay.
So we was married 1 week to the day, and I left for the service.
Wow.
And she made more money than I did.
She did.
She got the veterans sent her so much money. I forget now, $75. I think.
Is that
it was
right?
a month.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I got 25 or 30, something like that to give me. She
That's
she
interesting.
got more than I did.
Yeah.
But
Didn't she work at the Spur Cafe while you was in the service?
she worked at the Spur
Okay.
Cafe.
She worked for George Barnes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, that would have been the Spur Cafe would have been pretty new. It
Yeah.
had just been built because
Yeah.
I think it was just built in the mid 50s.
Yeah.
So you probably went into the service at about what 54 then,
Yeah,
1954.
Mhm.
So Korea was going on.
Mhm.
Actually, probably right in the height of Korea.
Korea, the war had just ended.
Oh, it just ended. Okay.
Mhm. Whenever I went in.
Okay, that'd been 55 probably.
Yeah.
So where did you end up going in service then?
Well, the first place I went to Fort Bliss, Texas.
Yeah.
My first 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I went to Fort Knox, Kentucky
Uh-huh.
for my second 8 weeks. And they they told us down there after that, if we was married, we could bring our wife down and live off base. So I didn't have a car down there, nothing. And
Mhm.
Lorraine, my sister, and her husband, my mom and dad brought my car down there, and they came in his car. So we got out to hunt an apartment. And they kept telling her, "You won't get no apartment. You won't find nothing." Well, we did.
Did you?
Yeah. So, but we didn't have nothing down there hardly. My mom always, every time she went somewhere like that, she had a picnic basket, and she kept plates in it, and
Yeah.
stuff like that, plastic stuff. And,
Sure.
And she said, well, she would leave that with us, but we didn't have nothing but that, And we rented a place in Vine Grove, Kentucky,
Yeah.
and the railroad tracks went right through town. And this couple lived in a house right there by the railroad tracks, and they rented us a room. So we stayed there, and the lady felt sorry for us that owned the house, and she gave her a skillet to cook in and some pillows and
Oh.
stuff.
Isn't that something?
And So anyway, we decided we'd go home and get some stuff. So I had a 51 Chevrolet. So we loaded, went to the car and headed to Marshfield.
Uh-huh.
Got down there and we loaded that old car down with stuff,
Yeah.
Got back down there and got it all unloaded and everything. We was there about 2 or 3 weeks and they told us that we was gonna have to take them home because we was going to Fort Eustis, Virginia.
Oh my goodness gracious.
So we loaded up the old car again, went back to Marshfield.
You did.
And that's when she went to work at Spur Cafe.
I
She
see.
stayed with her brother Kenneth.
Uh-huh.
You remember him?
Yeah, Kenneth.
Yeah.
Kenneth
She
Replow.
stayed with him
Yeah.
and worked out there. And Jean, George's wife,
Uh-huh.
would come and get her of the mornings and take her out there to work
Huh.
and bring her home back there.
Yeah.
And
How-
so went down Virginia
Uh-huh.
and it was trained to load and unload ships. We didn't know what that was for, but anyway, we found out.
Yeah.
When we took a troop train from there to Washington,
Hmm.
and I think it took us about 2 weeks to do that.
Yeah.
And we got on the ship there, and they was hauling radar equipment up in the Arctic, the Bering Straits, for the Air Force.
Oh, yeah.
And we went along and unloaded it.
Huh. You went along with them.
Yeah,
You went to Alaska?
yeah.
Wow.
Well, it was way up in the
Yeah,
Arctic.
yeah,
up,
yeah.
One time they told us we was within 15 miles of Russia.
Yeah.
And, but there was a whole bunch of ships that went.
Yeah.
But once in a while, then, well, the only time you could get up there was in the summertime
Oh, yeah. I
when the
imagine.
ice was breaking
Mhm.
up. And we would see these big chunks of ice, big chunks floating down.
Yeah.
And once in a while, our ship would get stuck in the ice
Really?
and we couldn't go. So we'd have to sit and wait for the icebreaker to come.
Yeah.
And I saw him, that icebreaker, he'd back off and get a run at it, and he'd just slide up on top of it.
Oh, my
And
goodness
about
gracious.
the third trip, he'd bust the ice.
He would.
And the captain estimated the ice as 15 feet thick.
Wow.
Just think how much ice cream that would
Oh,
have
my
made.
gosh. Well, that'd just be like, man, big old boulders. That'd be
Yeah.
just heavy. My gosh, that'd be heavy.
Well, we were gone up there 90 days.
Yeah.
And
You'd ship up and then you'd ship back too. Yeah. And you were in the Army, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were just on that ship with
Mhm.
sailors and
I
everybody else.
just on there to do the work.
Right. Yeah.
And when we started back, they took us off from the ship we was on and put us on a LST. What that is, if you may not know, it's a flat bottom ship and the nose of it all opens up. So we was to go to islands and pick up used equipment that they wasn't using no more.
I see. The islands over by Korea or over that direction. Yeah. Yeah.
Some direction. I
Yeah.
don't know.
That's
Off
pretty
the
Pacific,
view of
I'm
the
sure.
water.
Yeah.
And anyway, the last island we stopped at, we was to pick up the ship, crane rather.
Yeah,
pick up the
uh-huh.
ship, and picked up the crane, and
Uh-huh.
we got it stuck. So we had to leave it, couldn't get it out. And 2 days, I believe it was, after we left, we got in a real bad storm. And the captain of the ship estimated those waves as 50 feet high.
My goodness.
And that old ship cracked all the way across the top. When it fell off from one of those waves, it cracked.
You don't mean it. Wow.
And the captain said if we'd have got the crane loaded, it'd have made enough extra weight right up on the nose of it, it'd have broke it.
Cracked it
completely
too.
in two.
Boy, God was looking out for you there, wasn't he?
So what they done, they put us all back in a room, locked us in there. And we had to stay in there, and it was 3 days before another ship got back to us. So,
They didn't want to move the ship, afraid it might, the jarring or something
Well,
might crack or what?
the captain of the ship, the waves were so big that he turned that boat around on top of one of those waves and going with them instead of into
I
it.
see. Yeah,
And that made it a lot better. So
I see.
he just sat around out there until another ship got
I
back to
see.
us.
Yeah. So how many of the Army boys were there on there that you like in your group?
Oh,
I mean,
there was several. There's a whole
50 or,
platoon of them.
oh, I see.
Yeah, whole platoon of
Yeah.
us went. I was in the 240th Engineers and the whole 240th.
Well, you had a pretty adventurous time in the service. I mean,
You did.
you
Yeah.
actually got
Yeah.
to see some things that others don't get to see without having to fight. I mean,
Mhm.
man, hand combat,
I said,
but that's pretty interesting.
I've always said that they wasn't shooting at me, but
Right.
I almost drowned it.
Yeah, yeah. No, and you got to see a little bit of the world too on that, just taking that. So now
Yeah.
when you went from Virginia to the Bering Strait, did you go through the Panama Canal or did you go all the way around? Do you remember?
Well, I don't remember going through the Panama Canal.
Yeah.
I think they left from Washington State.
Oh, okay. So did you maybe train over there to Washington or something or?
Well, they trained in Fort.
And we trained in.
No, I mean,
Newport
did you
News.
ride the train though? How'd you get?
Oh, yeah.
Probably
Mhm.
rode the train to Washington
Yeah,
State.
they
Oh,
did.
yeah.
I see. And then,
Yeah.
but that ship that you loaded, if you were loading the ship in Virginia that was going up there, it had to go. You may not have been on it then, but it had to go one way to get there.
I don't think we loaded the ship at Virginia. We would load, what we would load on it, we would take off the next day.
I see. Okay.
We just
Yeah.
practicing up there.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
So,
That's interesting. That's really
the
interesting.
ships that were loaded, I think I'm telling this right, somebody down there,
Yeah.
they was loaded when we started down the lake.
Yeah.
That's it. That was his only cruise he's ever been on.
Yeah.
Not going on another.
No,
one.
that'd be a little rough for me.
This ship that finally came to us, it was 3 days coming to us, and they took us off and put us on it,
Yeah.
and it took us to Anchorage, Alaska.
Yeah.
We spent 3 days there, and then we got on another ship and came back to Washington, wherever that was.
Yeah.
And then we went back to Fort Knox, Kentucky.
On a train then, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I went home, got my wife, and brought her down there, and we lived off base the rest of my time.
Did you?
Mhm.
That's good.
Yeah.
My folks were in Fort Campbell during that same time period from
Yeah.
54, 55. My brother was born in Fort Campbell
Now
in
they
55.
was, I can't remember who it was, lived down there. And then he came over and seen us. If we was going home, he wanted to ride home.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I can't remember who it
Yeah.
was.
I don't know. Dad and mom were there, I don't know, a year or two, but well, a year maybe, because, after basic, he spent his whole career there. And like I said, my brother was born there in an Army hospital, but Korea ended when he was there. But, Well, that's a pretty interesting story. I'm glad you were able to tell that. Well, let's come back to Marshfield. And so you got out of the service, you come back to Marshfield, and then I guess you started to raise a family, or what did you do? What happened then?
Well, uh, Dorothy got pregnant down in the service,
Okay.
and James was born then
Yeah.
in December after I got out of
Okay.
service. Last day in December.
56.
56.
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Uh,
And where'd you go to work then?
I went to work for the county
Okay.
and run a road grader.
Yeah. Mhm.
I worked for county for 6 years.
Yeah.
Run the grader. Then I got on the highway department,
Yeah.
state highway
Yeah.
department. And I started at Stratford. They wouldn't harm me with you where you had kin folks working at the same shop.
Yeah.
So I had to go to work at Stratford.
Yeah.
And then I worked a little bit in Springfield, not a whole lot, but a little bit. We moved into Springfield then because they wanted you to live where you
Yeah.
were working at.
Yeah.
But we didn't stay in Springfield long because we went on to Republic.
Uh-huh. Did you get back to Marshfield in time for you to start school then?
I went my senior year here.
Okay.
Well, he went his first grade here. And
I went
then-
first, second, third grade.
Okay.
Then we moved. I come back my senior year.
See, I didn't remember that. I thought you went all 12 years
No,
here. I didn't
no.
remember you not being here.
He's got an interesting story when we worked for MoDOT.
Yeah, let's hear it.
There was a company in Joplin. What was the name of that? Do you remember?
No,
They hauled dynamite and stuff, and they went on strike. Teamsters.
Yeah. Oh, I know
Yeah.
about this story. Go ahead.
Yeah, this truck was going
Yeah.
down the highway,
I remember that.
and some people shot at it.
Yeah.
They were going to shoot the radiator, but they missed.
Yeah.
And it blew a hole in the highway. What was it, 30 feet deep and 50
Yeah,
feet long?
yeah. That would have been 70s or early 80s.
70s.
70s, yeah. I remember.
So he was running the road grader at the time, and they called him in the middle of the night. Said, we've had a blow up on the highway. And he thought sometimes the concrete will
Yeah.
come up. He thought that's what they meant.
Right.
Tell him about when you got over there.
Yeah.
I got over to the Republic shop. It was close to the Republic shop.
Uh-huh.
I saw some lights on in there and that looked kind of funny. So I went in anyway. I had a key. I went into the shop and there was glass everywhere and
In the shop?
in the shop and some lumber looked like the rafters broke or something. So I didn't take the grader up there. I got in the truck, went up there, and I saw what it was. They had lights everywhere and cars, a lot of cars up
Mhm.
there too.
Yeah.
So I went back and got the grader, went up there in the grader.
Now, did you have two-way radios by then? You probably did. You didn't have two-way radios. Okay. All right.
No, we had one in one truck,
Yeah. Okay.
and each shop had one truck
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
radio.
Yeah.
And got up there, and there was another grader there. They had another one, and the road going west, it was completely covered with mud and deep mud. It was from a foot deep, just nothing but mud.
Yeah.
and pieces of truck. And
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah.
And so we just sat there for a while. So finally, one of the big boys from Springfield, he said, "Okay, man, start those graders up and push this off from the road. Get this road open where the traffic can go through." They were running the traffic around the exit ramp and back on
Yeah.
the on ramp.
Mm-hmm.
And the FBI was there, heard him. He came over, he said, "Boys, shut those graders off and I'll tell you when to start them." So
Wow.
we figured,
Wow. Now, did you know then that I mean, you knew the truck had blown up,
Yeah.
and you knew that the man was probably dead and all
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
we, this may be a little gruesome, but we, had to get on back on the right of way and pick up pieces, you know,
Sure.
and we'd, just find little pieces of him
Yeah,
dead
yeah,
before, you
yeah.
know. One of the boys found a wristwatch. It's a time
Yeah.
It was still running,
Uh,
and nobody knew. We assumed it was his, but we didn't know
yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
But anyway, it
Yeah.
was a time X
Probably was,
wristwatch
yeah.
and was still running.
Wow.
But
Yeah,
the
that's
biggest piece of that truck was the block, the engine, and it was towards Springfield, probably 500 feet down from the bridge where it had blown in.
Yeah.
Over there or under the bridge,
Yeah.
I don't know which way it went. But that was the biggest piece that we found.
Yeah.
Of it.
Man. So that was in Greene County, not Lawrence County, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that.
And
I don't know if we were still in school or if it was after that.
No, we were still in school.
Still in school.
Yeah.
Okay.
the people that shot him was on the on ramp, and they had got out of their car and laid down on the ground and shooting at the truck. See,
Yeah.
that's how they
Yeah.
hit the Mr. Radiator. They didn't intend to do all that
Sure.
damage,
Sure.
but
Did they catch him? Did they
yeah, they caught them that night.
yeah.
Well, when they when they left up there, there was so many pieces of that truck everywhere. They had flat tires on their car, so they didn't get very far when they had them caught.
Did they know there was dynamite in the truck? Or they just knew it was a truck that had been
I
crossing
don't know whether they knew it
crossing the
was
picket line or whatever.
I think they did.
Yeah.
That's that kind,
Yeah.
that's all that company.
Yeah,
hauled.
that's all they hauled.
Yeah, probably did.
Yeah. Well, that's I'd sure that's something else. Yeah, that's quite a story. So you worked at the highway department, and then you were able to get back to Marshfield then about 70, about when you
74,
graduated, 74.
74.
Yeah. And then you had a sister, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
Deella.
Deella, and just the two of you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Okay. And she's probably what, 5 years younger than you, or
6, I think.
6,
She
yeah.
lives in Aurora.
Aurora? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
And after I worked 6 years, well, I come down there as foreman,
Yeah.
and you knew Bob Mars.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I worked with Bob about, I don't know if it's 2 or 3 years.
Uh-huh.
Bob passed away.
Had a heart attack. Yeah.
They lost a good man.
Yeah. Yeah. He was.
And George Raines, he came down from Rolla. He had been at Rolla, but I think then he had been shipped to Lebanon for a little while, and then
Yeah.
he came up there. He took Bob's place.
Yeah.
And I worked 3 more years, and I got cancer. And in my eye, had a melanoma tumor,
Wow.
and had to take my eye out. And the doctors wouldn't let me go back on the highway
Really?
department.
Yeah.
So
So
too dangerous out there
Sure.
on that road.
so you were what, around 40 then, maybe 40 some? Yeah.
46. Were you 46?
45 or 6,
Yeah,
one of the
yeah.
two.
Well, boy, you're a long time cancer survivor, aren't you? I mean, really, that's pretty amazing, isn't it?
I've had a lot of other cancers besides
You
that
have?
too.
Yeah. My wife was just diagnosed with breast cancer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So we're dealing with that, but we got it early and everything looks good on it. Her deal, but
Yeah,
Hopefully.
well, that's good.
yeah, it's
I
got
hate
about
to
you
hear
got to get it early.
Anybody that got cancer.
I know it.
'Cause
I know it.
I've had it so much and everything.
Now, he used to work for Noel Thomas' son too on the
I,
weekends.
I remember that. Yeah.
They had a little station up on the
On
square.
the square, yeah. I remember that. 'Cause
I wasn't very big.
I hung out up there, of course.
I did too, and I used to go up there on
Mhm.
Saturdays, and I'd sweep the.
Well, you worked for Wade then too.
Yeah.
In Noel out there.
Yeah, I worked when I was in high school. I worked
Yeah.
for them.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'd go up there
Yeah.
and sweep the floor and stuff.
Yeah.
Noel would give me $1 or something.
Yeah. I did the same thing.
And then I'd go through the alleyway to Mary's Variety
Yeah.
and spend it.
Yeah. 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 Didn't last long, did
It
it?
didn't, you
Yeah.
know.
No, we all had those
Yeah.
stories.
Gene,
Riding our bikes to the square.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and to the pool.
Oh yeah.
Gene Fraker, he was in there with Noel.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And we had moved to Stratford, and I had an old 55 Chevrolet pickup. And Gene, I was kind of wanting to quit because there's a lot of driving and
Sure.
everything. And Gene told me one day, he said, you go down to the Ford garage, pick out any pickup that you want, drive it off, and I'll pay for it. And he
Really?
wanted me to work there, so he worked it out.
Oh really?
He didn't want to get me tied up. I earned him a lot of money.
That's a pretty good offer though.
Well,
yeah.
it was, yeah.
Wasn't a
It
bad.
was kind of hard to turn down.
Yeah. Well, you made a good choice because the highway department, especially in those days, were good. That was a good career.
It was.
It was
Yeah.
a really good career. They had good benefits and retirement. And,
Uh-huh.
you know, a
They
lot of
had-
hard work. I know. You had to get out there in the night and
Yeah.
plow snow and take care of things like you just talked about. But it was a good career.
But the highway department has been good to me.
Yeah.
They probably didn't expect me to live this long. They started paying me when I
Well,
retired.
You know what though? For everyone that like you that you get a little longer time, but there's a lot of them that don't get much at all.
That's right,
You know,
yeah.
so it all evens out.
Yeah.
And,
And I'll tell you something else. The VA has been exceptionally
Yeah.
good to me.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done without them really. They paid
Yeah.
for all my leg. And,
yeah, the
I went
VA's.
for years and had a artificial leg,
Mhm.
and I could walk
Yeah.
around, you know,
Right.
with it and everything real good.
No, the GI programs that they've had, the GI Bill, all that have been wonderful, wonderful programs in our country.
And
I
they
think it's a
have
great thing.
been exceptionally good
Yeah.
to me.
Yeah. No question about that.
Yeah.
We're going to run out of time. Here's what we're going to do. We have to get Gene. Would you come back?
Yeah, I'll
And
come back.
You come back, and we're going to do. We'll talk a little bit more about a little more modern Marshfield.
Okay.
Maybe. Ain't we quite- maybe not real modern, but no. Let's do that, James, because
Okay.
we don't want to miss anything from your dad. This is really interesting, and these are the kind of things that the younger generations won't appreciate yet, but down the road they will. Because if I had $1 for every one of those stories I heard my uncle sit around or granddad and talk about from the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, I mean, it'd be amazing.
It would.
You know, it really would.
Now we, when I was working up here at the tire shop and
Uh-huh.
stuff, we could go both ways around the square. We
Yeah,
drove
yeah, I
both
knew
ways
that, yeah.
around the square.
Yeah.
And on Saturday night, everybody went to the movies. you
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
If you had a quarter.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of the farmers would come in town, bring their kids.
Mhm.
The kids would go to the movie and they would sit on the courthouse yard and talk.
Yeah.
Visit. They'd just be a bunch of them.
Mhm.
And they were always cars parked full
Mhm.
over in front of the movie. And this one couple, we knew real well. They was dating this man and woman. And he had an old 46 Ford pickup. And there's 3 or 4 of us boys around, and we decided that we'd go get one of those smoke bombs and put it on that pickup. So we did. we went and got a smoke bomb, tied it onto a spark plug and ran it down in the ground too, you know. And the funniest thing, Anson was sheriff.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was leaning right up against the front of that pickup when the show was over. And everybody was over there. The people across the street had
Yeah.
come over there. And the kids was all standing out there and everything. And him and her come out and he opened the door for her, you know, and
Yeah.
pick up and helped her in. And he went around and got in that old Ford and he hit the starter on it and it started. And I'm telling you, it popped. You could have heard it when it come out far. And the smoke rolled out underneath that. I some took off and everybody.
Isom left too, huh?
Yeah, he thought that thing was blowing.
Gonna blow. That is funny. I bet she had a little smoke smell in her hair for a while, didn't she? That's great.
I thought that was a real funny story.
It is a funny story. Yeah.
Was that David Whitehurst?
Yeah.
Was it really? That's Stan's dad? Stan and Steve's dad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
And his wife still living. As far as
Oh yeah, yeah.
she probably don't know yet who done that.
That is funny.
But I don't care if she did.
That is funny.
It was. I thought it was very funny.
Evelyn.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I'll have to ask Dan about that. I'll make sure he watches this show. Well, you know, when Farr was on, he said Marshfield had kind of got a little rough before Isom got up there.
Yeah.
And he said Isom got in there and he kind of straightened things out. I mean, he didn't take no BS from anybody.
No,
That's what he said.
there's a lot of drunks
Yeah.
on the street, on the
Mhm.
sidewalks and everything.
Yeah.
It got where the women was kind of hated to walk down the sidewalk
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
stuff, but boy, when Isom got sheriff, I mean, he cleaned them up in a hurry.
Oh, that's funny. That's good. I like that.
Yeah.
So you and your wife had a family. Where did you guys set up your housekeeping then? Where did you live at?
Well, the first house that we had, my dad and Charlie Braxton
Mm-hmm.
and Bob Baker
Mm-hmm.
built it. It was 24-foot square, and it was at the south end of Pine Street here in Marshfield.
Okay.
We was in the house.
That would have been
It's at the corner of McVeigh and Pine now.
mm-hmm. So it's not the one straight ahead of you. That would have
No.
been like the Kilburn.
No, it was on the north side of McVeigh, on the northwest.
northwest corner. Okay.
Mhm.
All right.
And I don't remember how long we lived there, but we got even the bigger house. It just had one bedroom.
Yeah.
It's small. When we built it, we had planned on building onto it and making that the garage. But we moved in a house down on Jackson Street, rented it.
Uh-huh.
I can't remember who owned the house.
It's next to the Quick Lube or whatever that is.
Oh yeah, right in there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
And when we traded with them, they bought our house up there. And
Yeah.
they was renting that house.
Yeah.
So we all moved at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we lived there quite a while.
Yeah.
And then Willis Strip Road.
Yeah. Yep. Good builder.
Yeah, he built us a house over on Pine Street,
Mm-hmm.
but on the other end.
North end.
It's a very good little house.
At one time, we lived next to Donald Roast out there.
Oh, you
on
did.
38.
Yeah.
But
And
we
that-
went from there out to Donald's, I think.
We had 2 cows,
Mm-hmm.
2 milk cows.
Mhm.
We milked them by hand. He had a little milker out here in town. We'd bottle it up.
Oh, really?
He'd put milk on people.
Even after you was grown?
Yeah.
I see.
I was in second.
Oh,
third
second,
grade.
I got you, yeah.
But he would set the milk on people's
Yeah,
porch.
yeah,
And
yeah,
they paid, by
Yeah.
a week or a month or something.
right,
I just whenever they wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
15 cents a quart.
man, unbelievable. So then, of course, after you went to Republic and Stratford, then you come home. Where did you end up living, like, whenever you graduated and stuff?
We lived on Hubble, next to Dale Hyde. You know where Dale lived
Yeah,
at?
yeah, yeah, right, okay, yeah.
It's
I
kind
kind of remember that
it's
now.
kind of
Split level, yeah,
Uh-huh.
okay.
Well, we moved on KK first, didn't we?
Yeah.
Then we moved
Moved
over.
there,
Uh-huh.
gotcha.
Over there, out there by Dale Sponsor.
Yeah. Then how long did you live there on Hubble? Quite a while.
I didn't live there very long because I left home.
You
then.
left.
You lived there, what, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 years?
I see.
Yeah, probably. We lived there when we went to Arizona for that winter.
Mm-hmm. You was already kind of retired, had to retire by then.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And we bought us a fifth wheel,
Yeah.
and we followed Pete Arthur,
Yeah.
his wife.
Uh-huh.
They went out to Mesa, Arizona,
Mhm.
about there for winter.
Yeah.
And we followed them out there and stayed 2 months.
Yeah.
Then we come back and we rented an apartment from Phoebe
Mm-hmm.
Rose.
Mm-hmm. Over there.
There for a little while.
Yeah.
Is that when we bought the house? We were split rental house.
No, that was after that, I think.
Yeah, after that.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's right.
Then later on, they bought a place on Northview Road,
Okay.
and we built a house next door to it.
I see. Out there.
Uh-huh.
Well, you've had a pretty full life, haven't you?
Yeah.
Lots of.
Well, we got another story.
Yeah. No, we want to hear it.
When we lived up there in Northview, why, we got us up a band.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I played Emmett the Carrot
Mm-hmm.
played the fiddle for us, and Lord Hendrick played the guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Charlie Ben Skin, he played the guitar, and then I played one, and Larry Carter, he played the mandolin. No, he played the guitar, didn't he?
I don't know.
Yeah, he played the guitar.
Yeah.
And Marvin Hope played the mandolin, and then Bonnie Hope, his wife, played the guitar, and Dorothy played the electric bass.
Yeah.
And we've done that for 10 years.
Really?
We played every Monday night at our house out there. We built this building. It was 24 by 40,
Yeah.
and we had our 2-car garage in it, and I had me a woodworking shop in the
Mhm.
back of it. Had an upstairs, so that's where we played all of our music at.
Yeah.
Was upstairs.
Yeah.
But we went to nursing homes. We played at 5 different nursing homes at one time.
Wow.
One at Willard, and 2 in Springfield, and then 2 in Marshfield.
Huh. Well,
We
did you
played
have a
it
name? Did your group have a name?
The Farliners band.
Farr. Okay. I remember the Farliners. Yeah. Okay. I had
And
forgotten you was you guys, but yeah. Remember the
we
Farliners.
played
Yeah.
churches. I don't know
Yeah.
how many churches we did.
Yeah.
We had different ones. We played at one. They were redoing their wedding 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
At, down by Raidertown.
Yeah.
And we played. They wanted us to play down there.
Now, did you and your wife, did you learn to play earlier in life, or did you just start learning then?
Well, I started learning a little bit earlier. Bill Rowland, did you ever
Oh
know?
yeah, I knew Bill real well.
Yeah.
He worked for my grandpa up at the tractor place.
Yeah,
Fort Western County Tractor.
Mhm.
Good guy.
Arthur was playing as Arthur's dad.
Yep,
And,
yep.
Arthur was going to play mandolin, and I was going to play guitar. The strings was about that far from the frets.
Yeah.
Couldn't hardly play it, but we done that for a while, and other things seemed to get more important. So I kinda quit that. and-
That's when you were a younger man.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's when I was living at home, and then we really didn't play any hardly at all. She didn't play any. I played a little bit here and there, just a little.
Did you
bit.
just kind of learn that naturally? I mean, just by ear, or did you
Well, Bill just kind of showed us,
showed you? Yeah.
yeah, a little bit.
Yeah.
And we just kind of picked it up. And let's see. Oh, I can't think too good right now. Anyway, we built this building and we had it on. Everybody kept saying, get the roof on it, get the roof on it. So we did. Amish put it on there.
Uh-huh.
And it come a big windstorm one night and blew it down.
Huh?
It just blew the props right out from under.
Yeah.
Didn't tear it up.
Didn't have the siding on it yet, maybe, or something. Yeah.
Didn't have siding on
Yeah.
it. Because everybody said, get the roof.
that
The
can
wind
happen.
got up in
That can
there.
happen. Yeah. Yeah.
And there was a step ladder sitting up there. And it never blew it over. It just went down with standing there. And but anyway, we tore it all apart and put it back together.
That was that building you practiced in? You talking about? Yeah.
Yeah, that we played in. Yeah.
Huh.
And we really didn't start doing that until, well, we would go down to Long Lane. They
Yeah.
had a jam session
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah.
We got going down there. I'll back up just a little. She said, if I had a bass, I could learn to play it.
Yeah.
So we was down Arkansas. Don Terry had a music
Yeah,
show
yeah.
down there.
Mm-hmm.
And
Carlson, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I paid him. He was coming to Marshfield. He was, or Carl was, or some of them. And so I paid him for one. It was just a cheap one. Don't remember how much I paid for it.
Mhm.
Wasn't very much. They brought it up there. And then, so I give it to her. I told her, I said, now when you learn to play it, I'll buy you a better one. And so we went down to Terror Vegetables.
Uh-huh.
And he showed her some chords on it. And we went up there and started playing. And she didn't know when to make her changes or nothing. So she'd sit over and watch me when I changed a key, she changed. Wasn't long till she
picked
knew
up.
how to do it. She didn't have to do that.
Well, that's cool.
And we done that for 10 years.
That's neat.
Unless it was snowing or something
Yeah,
like that
yeah.
on Monday
Yeah.
nights. We really enjoyed it.
I bet.
But I guess we got kind of tired of it and carrying that stuff around and everything. We had the
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
PA was ours, and we had to carry a lot of it. And only one person playing with us come out there and help me carry it back up the stairs. And that was Marvin Hope.
Yeah.
And we played over at Greenwood School for a long time
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And then we played in an old schoolhouse over at Foos too for quite a while.
Uh-huh.
Also, we enjoyed it. Boy, I tell you, you could be so tired and just go out there and sit down and get to playing and singing. Pretty soon you noticed you wasn't even tired.
Got the old adrenaline going again. That's neat. That's neat. Well,
we enjoyed that.
yeah. Well, this has been a real treasure. I've really enjoyed hearing about your life and your stories. I wish we had more time. I wish we had several hours, but we try to keep this thing an hour and a half. We can talk a little longer, but we do need to keep it probably under an hour and a half. But is there anything that that you'd sort of anything else you'd like to add that I mean, I know Dorothea passed how long's she been passed now?
Yeah, a little over 3 years.
About 3 years, yeah. So I'm sure
A little over.
it sounds like you had a wonderful marriage and a wonderful partner there in life.
Yeah, 68 years.
68 years. Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
James, anything that you can think of while your dad's here?
Well,
I'm going to have James come back and we're going to talk about running around in the 70s and 80s, but and all of his mail. I'm sure he's got some mail route escapades, but I want to, was there anything you want to add that's with your dad still here? And
I might add that Mom went to school at Oak Hill.
yeah,
You know where that's at?
yeah, where
Not too far from where
Mrs.
you live. Yeah.
What's her name? Made the house out of it.
Yeah, Gary Turner.
Yeah, Gary and Lois. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
Lois.
I guess not much more than that about
Uh-huh.
Mom and Dad, but
Yeah.
Well, I want to add a little.
Yeah,
something.
yeah, absolutely.
Dorothy had to have a leg taken off too.
Didn't realize that. Yeah.
She had, it started from blood clots in her leg.
Yeah.
When our daughter was born, Dylan,
Uh-huh.
well, of course, they didn't get you up out of the hospital bed.
Yeah, a little different like it is. Yeah.
She told them her leg was hurting her whenever they sent her home, and they just sent her home anyway.
Yeah.
And she got home and it just kept getting worse. And a little sore broke out on it down by her ankle.
Mm-hmm.
Band-aid was covered. And Bryce,
Uh-huh.
the doctor, he come out to the house and looked at it and stuff. And he said, well, I think you've got a blood clot. Said it's just kind of like a cow that had what was it, mastitis or something
Yeah.
in there, and said think it'd be all right. Well, it went on. This sore kept getting bigger, bigger, and bigger, and hurting her a lot. And Minnie Klein, you remember Minnie Klein or not? But she lived over
I don't remember her.
across the creek where the good night.
Yeah. Yeah.
She lived there.
Over there. Uh-huh.
And she was a nurse for Dr. Cozy, I believe.
Uh-huh. Remember Dr. Cozy? Yeah.
And she told Dorothy, she said, why in the world don't you go to Dr. Cozy? So she did. And he looked at that, kind of shook his head. He said, you've got blood clots in there. And he said, it had got a great big place about this big on
Wow.
my leg, just turned black and everything. He said, all that's got to come out.
Yeah.
And he said, it's not going to heal. So we'll have to graft it.
Mhm.
And he said, a graft is hard to get to grow down on, your foot, or bottom of your leg, or somewhere, because it's farthest away from your heart and
Mhm.
everything.
Yeah.
So that's what they done. He cleaned it out and he found 3 blood clots.
Wow.
And he started grafting it, and it would, some of it take, most of it would take sometimes, and some of it wouldn't.
Yeah.
Get back sore, and they'd have to take it off and
Yeah.
redo it and stuff. I don't know how many surgeries she had
Wow.
on that.
And that was all those years ago when your sister was
oh
little.
yeah, it's
Wow.
1963 or
Wow.
somewhere along in there.
Mhm.
Well, Deella was born in 63,
Yeah.
and anyway, I've heard her say she's had 50-some surgeries on her leg. And they finally, Dr. Jeter, well, we went to took her to Columbia up there to the hospital.
Yeah.
And this lady from Lenexa, Kansas, she was happy to be up there. And she said, well, I can heal that. So I've got a shop over in Lenexa, Kansas that massages you and stuff.
Yeah.
This, that, and other. And she said, I can heal that. So we go to Lenexa, Kansas. And she's been keeping it wrapped all along, but they wrapped the awful side of bandages around it and everything. We went to the motel that night. We had to change the bandages on it and wrap all them bandages up. Took us a long time. I told Dorothy, I said, things has got to be different about that, wrapping those bandages up like that. So when we got home, I made a thing, put it in my cordless drill, run it backwards, and then just wind them bandages right up. So I took it out to Kansas and told them about it. This lady said, oh, said, you make me a bunch of them and bring them out here, and said, I'll make you rich. Well, I made several of them.
Did you?
Took them out there. That's the last I heard.
You didn't get rich? You didn't get rich? Oh, that's great.
No,
That's
I
great.
didn't get rich. But anyway, make a story a little short. She had her leg finally amputated, and
How long ago was that then? Several years later? Yeah.
yeah. And her and I both had those phantom pains. Something awful.
Oh, yeah.
We both have been in pain for a long time.
Yeah.
All that time.
Yeah.
And she'd already passed away. And it was 1st of September, 2022.
Yeah.
Dr. Butler, I was going to,
Mhm.
he gave me some pills, had me get some. I don't know what they call Pregorgit or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
I got those. And the minute I took one of them, I could tell the difference.
Really?
And they went completely away. After all those years,
Your phantom pains?
yeah, they went away. I had no more phantom pains. Of course, Dorothy had already passed
Sure,
away.
sure.
See? She died in 21.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Isn't that amazing?
now, once in a while, the part of the leg that isn't here hurts.
Yeah. Now, when you originally lost yours, that's been several years ago too,
Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Was that cancer or was that diabetes or just
I had tumors in that leg,
in that leg?
and they were in the muscles and around the blood veins,
Yeah.
and they had started down at my ankle, and they had already climbed up to my knee,
Hmm.
and they was just the type that hurt all the time.
Sure. Yeah.
So they found them up at the Mayo Clinic.
Yeah.
We've been everywhere.
Yeah.
And
It sounded like Dr. Cozy let her keep a leg for many, many years.
yeah, he did.
Yeah. But he was like
really-
my grandparents' doctor way back, and
Yeah.
I remember them talking. They loved him. They
Yeah.
thought he was
Oh,
great.
he was Marshfield for a long time.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even-
Dr. Marshfield.
Well, that's how everybody knew him then, I
Yeah.
guess. Why they went to him. Yeah.
But Tommy,
Oh, he was.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't realize that. But
yeah. But anyway,
yeah. Yeah. Well, you've had quite a lot. Jackson, what do you think about all this? Did you learn anything today? Someday you'll appreciate this. Someday your grandpa James will pull this up for you after you and you'll realize how important these stories were. It's
He was kind of proud of his grandma.
yeah, imagine.
He likes to work,
Great grandma.
me and him like to work on old tractors.
Do you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got his own tractor. So he did most of the work to it too.
Well, that's awesome. That's great. Well, that boy over there, Logan, he likes to work on cars. He's rebuilt cars, and he's kind of into that. Plus computers, of course. So
Yeah.
it's good to see them work with their hands and learn those things for sure. Well, I think we probably need to kind of wrap it up. But James, we're going to have you come back. Can you come back next week?
As far as I know.
Let me know if you can,
Okay, I'll let you
and
know.
we'll hear some, like I said, some dog biting stories out on the mail route or something.
Yeah.
You'll make something up for us. But Gene, this has been a real treat, and I don't know if you realize this, but you've really been blessed
I have been.
to have a life as long as you have, and to be as sharp as you are, and apparently pretty decent health, looks like.
Well, I've had a few surgeries.
I know you've had, yeah, but you're doing
Yeah,
really well, and
from 90,
Yeah.
I do pretty good.
you know, we've had 4 or 5 on in their 90s and some in their 80s, and you know, it's just amazing the memories, you know, of some, and I just appreciate that, and I know the Lord's been good to you, and I know that you've got a great family, and family support's always one reason a lot of those folks are that way at that age.
So he went to the VA doctor yesterday.
Yeah,
All his test results were good.
that's great. That is great. Well, if I'm still doing the show when you're 100, will you come back? But we'll have you come back before that, because I think what you go home and you think about some more stories you'd like to tell. We've had Tom Farr on 3 times, and I've had, you know, a couple others on a couple times, and because after time, you know, you kind of think about more stuff, and it's just, again, this is history for Marshfield. I mean, don't get paid anything or anything like that, but I would like to compile all these someday in some kind of a format, and I don't know whether, you know, we can put them in a book, because I think Logan can tell us, but I think you can do the closed captioning on these, and it'll have the verbiage, you know, or it can be put into a book, you know, a video book or something. But anyway, but
That
we'll
would be
always
neat.
have the information, you know, out there on thumb drives or discs or whatever.
I've got one story.
Yeah.
About my dad.
Yeah.
You don't have time.
Yeah, no, you go ahead.
It's just
we're good.
one of the hardship,
Yeah,
the old, I call them the old people.
that's right. No, you're right. The ones that we would love to have had more stories about.
He's not old.
No.
But anyway, he had an old Model A pickup. And in the winter time, back then we got cold weather. It'd get 0 and
Yeah.
stay there
Yeah,
for a week or 2.
it did back in the 30s.
Yeah. And he would he had made him a wagon of a thing and put a Model A engine on it and stuff, and sawed wood for the neighbors and stuff, you know. But his old Model A pickup, I've heard him tell me, well, I knew about it, I guess I wasn't very old. But to start that thing in the wintertime when it's cold like that and it's sitting outside, he would take a bucket of ashes and coals out of the stove and set them under the oil pan of the old
I've heard of that.
Model A,
Yeah,
so it'd heat that oil up,
Yeah.
so it would start.
I've heard that. Yeah. Did it have a crank on it? Yeah. Yeah.
It had a crank on it.
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think now a lot of times about how smart those old men were.
Oh yeah, they could figure things
Because
out.
They could figure
Yeah.
everything out.
Yeah.
They didn't jump on no tractor and go
Right.
ride around and watch the TV. And
Right.
stuff while they-
Well, and even just on the farm, you know, to their livestock, they had to cut ice, you know.
Oh, yeah.
And of course,
many assholes.
and you know, you had an old hand pump well, and you had to draw. Would those things ever freeze up? I don't know, but how, you know.
They would or not.
But I mean, you had to draw water for anything you wanted to do, and it's just amazing the lives that
I remember Grandpa put a 55-gallon barrel in the pond and putting wood in it and burning it.
I've heard of that. Yeah. But they figured those kind of things out, didn't they? Yeah.
But anything, you know, they were just smart enough to
Yeah,
figure
They
things
were.
out.
they were.
he
And they
did.
could do things with their hands. They could build, they could, you know, anything. They all could do it just about.
I think he only went to the second grade school,
Yeah.
but you could give him a pencil and paper and tell him what size of a house you wanted to build.
Yeah.
And he'd sit down and figure out how much lumber you needed for this and that
Yeah,
and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, they could do it. Figure the
Yeah,
rafters
good.
in their head, the rafters,
He
all
cut
that.
a rafter, you know. They got
I suspect he worked with my Grandpa Kale's son, didn't he? I don't know, but
He might have.
I've heard him talk about Elston
I bet
Farr,
he
you
did.
know.
Probably did. I worked for Cal.
Yeah.
Cut saw logs.
Did you? Yeah.
Me and Nancy and Gray.
Yeah.
Well, I better let you go home.
Well, listen, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And we'll a few months or something, we'll come, you think about some more stories and let James know, and we'll get you back up here, and
Yeah.
because it's really fun, number one, and people enjoy hearing
Yeah.
about the old days.
Well, I enjoy
That's good.
talking. I think anymore at night, a lot of times I'll lay there and think
Yeah.
about things.
Yeah. And you know, even if you just made a note, if you had a notepad, just make a note about that. Don't write the whole story. That would be enough that you could come back and tell the story then, you know, because I'm that way at night. I lay and just to remind me what I thought about, then I can think of it, you know. But all right, well, it's time to head out. Logan's gonna close us out up there on the screen, and Jackson, thanks for coming today. Yeah, appreciate it.
He's
James.
from Nashville.
James, we'll see you maybe next
Okay,
week. And
all right.
And Gene, thank you. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Wish you the best.
I appreciate you telling me all this stuff.
Yeah.
I could tell you some more, but
Well, you just jot them down, make notes on it, and then
the
we'll
things
talk
that
about it.
we had done. And,
Yeah, around town, you know,
yeah.
Tom was really good about, you know, just what went on around Marshfield, you know, and that's so fun to hear that.
Going
So-
to Bell Ford swimming.
There you go. See, there's a great story. Yeah.
Coldest water in the country.
Yeah.
Bell Ford.
Yeah. Okay, we'll sign off. Thank you all. Thanks for watching today. We will see you again, hopefully next week. And everybody, hopefully get through this bad weather this week.
Yeah, I'm ready for summer.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.